Okay, maybe a very short introduction. So welcome Madis Arukask here in Pärnu, and because our topic of this Frames project, Frame 4 is rituality, I asked Madis to speak a little about what rituality is. And it's one goal to understand better what is rituality, but this kind of practical goal is also that idea is to make it 10th of August some kind of ritual. So also now we start also to compose this ritual, and idea is to make some kind of ritual form event.
Right.
Okay, but please, Madis.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for coming. And yeah, after this short introduction, I'm folklorist by profession, and I work at University of Tartu. My study field has to do mostly with beliefs of indigenous peoples. Most of all, I made extensive field work in northwestern Russia during 20 plus years amongst small Finnic peoples, like mostly among Websians. And so yeah, I've studied their beliefs and also rituals, to put this way. So and today, yeah, as Andros kindly introduced already, I tried to talk about what ritual maybe is, or how it can be handled theoretically, first of all. So I hope I'm not too deep. And sorry, I have no PowerPoint, no pictures, nothing, only my own PowerPoint on paper. I mostly, when I'm lecturing at university, I use PowerPoint as kind of just to remember things, first of all, for myself, not to illustrate or make everything beautiful. Okay, the very word ritual comes from Latin, and it means something what has made in proper way, or in used way, or in a reasonable way, something what is made correctly, let's say this way, not wrongly. And I think that when we are talking about rituals, or at least I base or I stem on maybe three things. One is social structure. I think that every society or human world everywhere, it's every community, there is something beyond or behind some structural system what organizes the things around, what is invisible mostly for us, what exists. So, and that's one thing. Another thing is all activities, all things, or I don't know, whatever deeds or people used to make. And these are symbolical things. We make art, we make music, we make, I don't know, literature. We make beautiful things, maybe not so beautiful things, but we create something, and all what we create have some symbolic meaning, symbolic background, all this firework around. So, and now going to ritual, the question is, does the rituals some kinds, do the rituals bring together those two things? And of course my answer is that the rituals do it some ways. So this social structure from one hand and all those symbolic human activities what meet in rituals. And to study rituals, first of all, is to put the question which way or to what extent so social structure what seems to exist out of people or out of our conscious mind, from one hand, and human creativity from other hand, how they are expressed, or how it happens in ritual activities. And one more angle of the problem is what is the share or function or task of human being as an individual in this process, in the ritual. What we are doing personally in the rituals. To what extent rituals used to be collective things, working some ways out of our personal intention or everything, or to what extent rituals are very personal things for all of us. And of course we are talking now, or we shall talk about very different rituals soon. And maybe before going deep into theory, we should ask what's the meaning of ritual in our everyday life at all. Because one thing is whatever scientific definitions, but but other thing is our normal language use. So if maybe you may think what the ritual mean if you heard the word in your mother tongue, for example, in Estonian, I don't know, ritual is something I used to meet with somebody, let's say, twice. I have good friend, we used to meet, I talk in real now, I have good friend, he lives in Pärnu, I live in Tartu, but we meet twice or 3 times per year, and we used to walk around and talk about everything. It happens usually by the river in Tartu. So I may say it's kind of ritual. You agree, I hope. Or if you meet somebody to have a cup of coffee, but you do it regularly, maybe it's something like this, or maybe you have some other example, I don't know. But you understand. So I think it's, at least in Estonian language, ritual is used in that kind of meanings very often, in everyday language use. I don't know, do you have the same or not in Finnish or in your mother tongue? Well, if you take psychology, then the ritual, as I understand, I'm not a psychologist and I'm not interested in psychology very much, but but in psychology, as I understand, ritual used to mean kind of pattern of behavior which used to repeat itself, and the idea is that kind of behavioral patterns as rituals help people, especially in modern world, to cope with anxiety and that kind of personal problems. If you have some ritualic behavior, some patterns, they help you in your daily life to cope whatever disturbing things. So that's just another example how what the word ritual may mean in some other discipline. Or if you take, for example, the field of cultural communication, that's a full discipline in today's world, teaching mostly businessmen and other busy people. So in cultural communication field, the ritual means very simple everyday activities that take place in different cultures in different ways. For example, and it's very overall meaning. So simple act of eating, how we sit by table, and in China we use sticks maybe, and in India we use right hand, and in Western culture we use other equipment. You know, in every culture we eat differently, and the task in cultural communication studies is to understand what's the difference in different cultures for the same activity, and that kind of activities, daily activities in cultural communications are called rituals. Just nothing to do with whatever mythology or beliefs or higher things, just daily life. And maybe if you go to my field, it's a study of religion and beliefs, then the question what ritual is mostly focused on the interaction between rituals and beliefs. Let's say between rituals and myth, or rituals and canonical teaching, or whatever other things. So for researcher of religious or folk belief, as I do, the main question is how rituals interact with not so much bodily or performative things, texts, teachings, ideas, things like that. So yeah, very practical introduction for the project, what angle to choose. Well, and of course, I'm very sure that we can find other examples what ritual may mean in different disciplines, in different cultures, so on and so on. Well, but in general, I think that we got now daily language use, psychology, cultural communication, belief studies for fields, for example, and of course we may add other things, but I think the common feature in all of this is that ritual is something what used to repeat time to time, which somehow structure our daily life, make it it's kind of quality time. Let's say when I meet with good friends, we have coffee. It's okay. It may take place in our daily life, but anyway, it's a special occasion somehow. It makes me feel good, or create some quality moments for both of us. Let's say. It maybe puts something in order. So, and in that sense, ritual has very much to do with the concept of holy. I think holy contrasting to daily life. Holy as something special in time and space, in daily life, in life of every people. And the concept of holy is something what brings together some higher things and our daily things. It puts it together in special occasion, and maybe ritual is something what is about expressing the special feeling or make it visible somewhere. So yeah, very important thing about rituals really is this performative side of rituals. Most of rituals has its, side things, dancing, maybe singing, music, texts, a lot of performative things, costumes, special behavior of people, not daily behavior. Maybe even the kind of shift also in our mentality that takes place in rituals, kind of altered state of consciousness maybe. It's very typical for rituals very often, I think. Maybe not when we have coffee and have good conversation, but in real rituals. I don't know, is a concert kind of ritual? You're acting musician, do you feel something special? I am a university teacher, and I very often I have to lecture, of course, but every lecture, if I think now this way, is kind of ritual maybe, because I must concentrate in a special way. Even if I feel sick or ill, I must take myself together and make this performance, like actor or musician, and it's not easy all the time, but anyway, I change all my constitution in that case, and my mind, and maybe it's another just example about rituality. So yeah, this ritual and holy. There are really really good examples in the field of anthropology and religious studies. From the end of 19th century up to 21st century, a lot of people. It's the issue of rituality is handled very much in the 20th century studies. The very same thing. The ritual and the holy, for example, Mircea Eliade, very well-known 20th century researcher. He explains the ritual, or let's say the state of holy, what takes place in rituals as a kind of invariative or archetypical event, or event which repeats later time to time, but every time that it goes back to the very first act of creation, whatever ritual we have. If you have, for example, in Christian culture, we have kind of Christmas, for example. It's the birth of Jesus. It took place once, but we repeat in every year, and in every year this holy birth act takes place in our lives. It's example about this ritual creates regularly the very first quality, or it expresses the very first act, and at the same time it brings to our lives kind of quality feeling that Jesus is born, and again and again. Just simple example. Well, maybe now another issue is, so yeah, I started my talk with this social structure versus symbolic behavior things, what rituals bring together, and another thing is the role of individuality in rituals. If you look back into history, and not only in history, if you look around in world, we see that lots of traditional rituals have to do with community things. This is something that brings people together. They think, behave, act, sing and dance in the same way. Rituals create some kind of community feelings, which is not maybe so visible, so active in daily life. Yeah, Estonian Nordic cultures are very individual. Western cultures are very individual things, but even in our cases, the big rituals bring people together and put somehow they at the same level. I don't know. Estonian society is very secular society. There is not so much, I don't know, religious things in our small country, but let's say the singing festival is one good example. Thousands of people come together, they sing the same songs. It's the biggest, civil ritual in Estonian culture, and people really feel, be they singers or in audience, they feel the same kind of quality feeling during this festival, or some other things. So, but yeah. The question about the collectivity and the personal share in rituals is now the topic, and in Western culture, the very very good example text. Well, now I use the computers. One the breaking point in Western culture is let's say some some 17th century maybe, where the Middle Age finally was already over for a long time, of course, but when especially in Northern Europe took place Reformation, Protestantism began, and if you read, for example, the Martin Luther's Catechism, the basic text of Lutheran Protestant, then the Luther addresses in his Catechism very much the question about the importance of individual consciousness in Christian rituals, because the criticism of Martin Luther towards early Catholicism in Middle Ages was that it's kind of mystical thing, you know, it's just a collective mysticism what takes place in Catholic churches, and how the priests manipulate with people, put them, and how the lay people actually don't understand the main meaning of the Christian messages, what Jesus Christ teached once. So when to read now the Lutheran Catechism, let's say the chapter of baptism, for example, which is in dialogues, of course. So I'm only in Estonian version is, but talking about baptism, well, if you know the Catechismus, you know that it's kind of dialogue, the question answer to question answers, and what Luther here explains, asking question how would simple water make that kind of miracle in newborn lives, is that it's not just the water, but it's not just a abstract mysticism that takes place, but the human self itself must believe in this, have understanding, understand the meaning in Christian teaching, what takes place in baptism. It's not just a miraculous thing what takes place, but a real and let's say very pragmatic act, and that's the main one of the main meaning of Protestantism, to make people, everyone, very aware of the real Christian teaching, to read Bible, to read Gospel, not just take place in mystical rituals, having no understanding what takes place. So I think in Western culture, this is one of the breaking point when the human individuality is brought into discussion in rituals. So it's not just a collective thing that takes place, but it's something what every one of us takes to some extent, or mostly individually, making sense about what is taking place. So when I think again about Estonian singing festivals, I think it's mostly people come together and get the feeling, and it's something mythical, collective. It cannot be put in words. But if you know Estonian culture and history of Estonian culture, and you can bring maybe yourself back in some way in 19th century, second half, when the first singing festival took place, and you know all these cultural processes and everything, the history of the festival, then you get some personal kind of touch in your consciousness into this singing festival, and maybe this way it's not so much mystical anymore. I don't know. Okay, anyway, what Martin Luther addresses in Christian context here is that everyone, be it whatever ritual and however important ritual, every personality must have the personal knowledge, the personal education about what is going on. And I think that is what difference this collective, ecstatic, mysterious rituals and the modern world rituals, at least in Protestant world, and not only maybe. And I think from practical side, it's another thing to, what can be taken into mind when talking about the project, or I don't know which way
we can
addressed.
Talk about after your.
Sure. Well, you can talk right now. So I just split out the ideas or theoretical. Put into play different theoretical angles or everything. So yeah, one thing is a very traditional rituality, but we can see everywhere in our world today. Also, and another thing is a modern way rituals, personal rituals, where our conscious works, which are quality events. But when we understand what makes this quality work, we kind of we know the meaning, we know the mechanisms of what's going on maybe. But that's not all, I think. The traditional world, the modern world, and of course today we live in the postmodern world. And when think what takes place in postmodern rituals, I think it's kind of third option already. Okay, the collectivity is there, the individual knowledge is there, but there is something more, I think. What is postmodern rituals? What I mean, I think, let's say again in Estonian context, what I know more, it's different formats which mostly have to do with kuidas on eneseabi inglise keeles? Self-aid või ma ei tea. Well, yeah, you know, modern people are in travel everywhere, every time. The media, TV, internet, it just feeds us different problems. And the task of modern people usually is to find out those problems in yourself and to sell or look for aid. And when you go to, let's say, the bookshop and look for the bookshelf of esotericism and mysticism, there is a long list of different teachings, and your task is to choose and combine and read and find yourself and to sell, of course. That's and of course there are special workshops adding to this format, special intellectual leaders who help you. So in that kind of postmodern rituals, of course, the individuality is very important, your own. But from other hand, it's not the same way as Martin Luther put it, because in those postmodern rituals, what I think, you kind of you're a customer first of all. You buy the thing. And every customer in modern world, in today's world, must be treated individually. You know, it's for you. It's something special for you. Buy this. You know.
Saame katkestada korraks, meil tuli fotograaf Pärnu
Okei.
Aga oota mind, aga ainult mind on vaja või?
Ei, kõik.
Sa arvad, et laud linast nüüd?
Pane mind.
Kuule,
ma unustasin ära.
No the ritual takes
Ritual. Ja, okei. See ritual.
The photographer came and then we must make a
demonstrate.
I don't know, is it ritual actually,
but it's very ritual. Ja. Repeating.
Me tahame midagi ilusamaks teha, see pidi ju olema.
Jaa.
Nii, aga...
Okay. I make a ritual face now. Typical ritual.
Tutvustad ise?
Jah, ei ole küll sama.
Tutvustad? See on video?
Ei,
okei.
Aga teie rahul, kui pilte, me jätkame. Me ei poseeri. Me ei poseeri.
Jaa. Yeah, so yeah, now the traditional way of rituality, the modern way of rituality in Western culture, and now the postmodern way of rituality, which is another setting, as I try to explain. I hope you understand or you catch what I mean. You must kind of obey to the teacher or the host or authority who sells you the idea by the book or in the workshop or wherever, from one end, and from other end, your own agency is left to you to make this your choice to buy thing. So that's something what is different comparing, let's say, in traditional Lutheran Christianity, where you have obey anyway to the priest, without your own personal agency so much as it is possible in everyday life today. Well, how much I have time? I just check. Okay. Yeah, but then I myself have studied mostly. I'm most of all interested in traditional way of thinking, and this old way rituals that we can see in amongst people who are not so much influenced by the modern world or postmodern world, whatever we take. So, and I think that kind of rituals have most of all to do with this magical way of thinking, the collective way of thinking. Those rituals are not that kind of rituals where this human self or individual self is very much aware of what's going place. People just is doing tradition or ritual things, what they have learned from their childhood, what they have seen all the time, people doing in their community, and there is not they are not very aware of the real meaning. Maybe if I used to make field work and ask people about whatever rituals, what is going on, people usually don't know the meaning of things. Why you do this way, or why these people is acting this way? You can get very different explanations, answers at the very same time, and that's very typical and it's very normal for traditional rituals, very essential for them. The meaning is created mostly in interaction. It may vary. The meaning is very situational. Often you do not find the one and only truth in those rituals. So these are very creative events, and so on, so on. So and it has been a very tricky question for anthropologists. The same interaction between, from where we started already, from this social structure and symbolic activity, symbolic behavior. And different anthropological theories explain this relationship in different way. Let's say the functional school of British anthropology in the first half of 20th century. Researchers like, let's say, Bronislaw Malinowski or Alfred Radcliffe Brown and others, they were quite sure that there is very tight connection with this social structure and symbolic behavior. They are kind of very close things. But maybe some other anthropologists later, like Clifford Geertz, for example, were thinking in very different way that the meaning is created in rituals. The rituals are explaining the social structure around us, not just kind of, I don't know, repeating it or stemming on this. So the rituals are places where the meaning creation takes place at the very moment. Rituals are not fixed things in that sense. And it's very different what the functionalist school was thinking before that. that rituals are quite mechanical things, already ready-made kind of happenings or events. So we truly don't know what's the real answer, but it's just, again, a thing for discussion. And of course we can find many other theoretical approaches of the topic. And of course another important thing is how difficult or how detailed are different rituals among different peoples, how elaborated are rituals. So I think that when we look indigenous people, especially in North, let's say Finno-Ugric people, it's often said that, and especially Nordic people, nomad people, then usually we can see that the rituals of them are not very highly elaborated or very developed. I mean, they are not very complicated. They are quite simple, actually. And when we compare, for example, some high cultures or high society, we can see absolutely different pictures. The rituals are very full of different details, lot of must things. For a stranger, it's very difficult to orientate in these rituals. Yeah, I remember just one book by Estonian folklorist Oskar Lorits, who was developed his ideas in the first half of 20th century, and then later in one of his books, Eestluse elujõud, life force of Estonians. It's a very ideological book, of course, but Oskar Lorits explains there that really, when comparing Estonian or Finno-Ugric rituals to, let's say, the German or European, Western European people rituals, we can find that the rituals of Finno-Ugric people are quite simple comparing to, let's take, I don't know what, wedding, for example. Okay, in Pisang wedding it became also in Estonian or Finnish tradition quite structured already. You know, before wedding is the courtship and different symbolic activities what's taking place. But if you look, for example, in Siberia to easternmost Finno-Ugric people, we can find that those wedding thing is quite simple sometimes. It's enough when the man meets young girl, and I read that kind of stories just and if they eat together, and the man offers for the girl the piece of meat, and when the girl takes this, it's already made thing. It's already agreement. They are husbands from that moment, and we can see it's very simple thing. There is not big community or whatever tricky specialist around. So and now again, of course, that kind of example that I brought last now, it's not talking about the modern agency or for modern people, the individual will. It just explains that among some people the rituals may be very simple, but they still are rituals. You must know this symbolic language, what means if somebody is offering you meat, but maybe consequences of that, you know. But yeah, when we look about wedding practices and all these rituals already, even in North Europe, peasant culture, we see that it's a full set actually of ritual activities and the symbolic language what is used in that kind of events is sometimes very elaborated already, and you must know the language, you must know the meaning of different acts, what is going place. Yeah. In connection with this wedding issue, in Estonian society in this year and already in last year, this the issue of this, how it is in English again, abieluvõrdsus.
Marriage equality.
Marriage equality, okay, I don't know. This is a very huge issue. It's already accepted in Nordic countries that everyone can, I don't know. But today morning I started to think about this discussion in Estonia. To what extent it has to do with social structure, and to what extent it has to do with the same symbolic thing. Because the arguments that in Estonian society were brought pro this equality thing was that the people members of different minorities, they must be accepted in the same way as how to say, ordinary people, men and women. And this explanation, as I understand, has to do with the social structure issue.
It was adapted to by Western people, explaining what these Africans did, and it was brought into European general discussion and also academic discussions. And it was transformed to entirely different kinds of rituals in Europe. And the funny thing is that people in Europe understand this. It's a concept of fetish and fetishism.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that Europeans understand this totally different from Africans, contemporary Africans. And it's a transformation of a concept, a ritual maybe. And to me, well, we can discuss this tomorrow, it's more like a power of philosophy. Philosophers discovered this new meanings of this ritual and transferred this to their society's European way of thinking.
It's a very typical problem there that Western people used to see things through different glasses just and it's everywhere actually. I've met Indian people in academic events who say that you Western people used to see in our rituals so many things what we never see or understand, and from other end you talk about our rituals, you know,
without even knowing what
and you are so sure that you understand it
yes,
correctly, and the way you create the meanings and put the truth at place, and it's just amazing. But for us it's just nothing. Or we don't understand, we don't see this way as you used to see it and write in your academic books and so on. And it's really quite spread problem actually. So yeah, it's the task of Western science and anthropology first of all is to kind of explain the mechanisms, as I told, and there are lots of different theories in Western social and studies and humanities, which very easily explain the same thing in very different ways. I recently was on a conference in Kyrgyzstan, and I had to talk with one professor who just told me about one very interesting case. It is possible to meet in Kyrgyzstan with Russian scholars. And this guy came from Moscow, and he told me one case, how one Catholic priest from Uganda came to Moscow to find out what is the most tough and strongest religion in the world. And in Russia, he was explained that this is the old believers, vanausulised So something that was before the Orthodoxy, today's Orthodoxy, and really the old believers communities are spread around Siberia and Karelia and outskirts of Russian and Western world, and it's really very, how to say,
Estonia too.
yeah, in Estonia, of course, that they have maintained very old things. And for this priest from Uganda, he was very much, how to say, yeah, he found it's most it's something real in a religious sense, and so he took this old belief. I don't remember which branch of it, and he brought it to Uganda, made his own congregation, everything, and in some ways acts. And my question to this guy who told about this case to me is, what is going now place in real in this Uganda? Do the local people actually understand? Can it be compared to old believer society somewhere in Siberia or something? And what do they see in this? And it's a similar case some ways. The teaching or the rituals even, or let's say the order of rituals may be the same, but the meanings
of the
or symbolic understanding of everything may be totally different.
This is
and I'm sure it is different in Africa and in Siberia.
Good answer.
Yeah,
good,
right.
Yeah, I agree.
I have also two questions. One question is about a little the same now. Must ritual have some kind of insider and outsider, or it is only enough when ritual have some insider, or what is the position of outsider of ritual?
So what do you mean?
No, outsider in this meaning that person who doesn't actually know what is going on.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
This is a good question, because what we talked beforehand of the tomorrow's subject, the Portuguese actually gave the word for fetish,
Right.
and they were actually Portuguese priests, Orthodox Catholic priests, and they didn't. I don't think they understood what the Africans did. They just, it became a catchword.
Yes.
No, but
And they were outsiders, and took it as outsiders to Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, but maybe I have posed other question too. Can ritual also be meaningless, or it is then no ritual? Is meaning, to have some meaning, something essential for ritual?
Yeah. I think for outsider, rituals used to be mostly meaningless because they have no understanding about the structure of this, and if you don't understand the structure or you have no kind of closeness to these symbolic acts, it usually is meaningless.
Do you agree that a ritual can be vanished when it doesn't have any meaning, because there may be society changes or people change, or way of thinking changes, then.
But I would ask this question from the other way around. Is there anything existing in our world that has no meaning? Because as we recognize things, we automatically project a meaning to everything, I think.
So it again depends on our theoretical background, I think. Functionalists are sure that there is always kind of meaning beyond every ritual or symbolic activity in culture. Every symbolic activity is kind of straight link to the social structure or mechanism in culture, and the task of researcher is just to find out this link, or how it works, or how the world machinery is put together as a culture. So, but maybe differently, what told Clifford Geertz is that every ritual creates meaning, So every ritual is for somehow explaining the society, or find out, or bring to the stage the different meanings or different problems. That's why another theorist, Victor Turner, his idea was that actually rituals are places where the social tension is addressed, where the social problems get their explanations and are solved some way. Again, good example of the function of rituals, maybe again. So, but yeah, your question about what's this insider and outsider is, I have no one and only answer to this, because it seems to me, yeah, I have a good friend who used to make fieldwork in northern Kaunite, and he was studied, and hopefully still studies at the video rituals.
Okay.
Video rituals in northern Kaunite, and it took place on lots of funerals, and he told me that for him it was disaster. He didn't understand everything. It was absolutely unstructured events for him of course. Those rituals, those funerals used to take place some 3-5 days.
Yes.
And
typical of Africa.
Yeah, of course. And then people used to sleep there, and there was no timetables, nothing, and it was very difficult to document this, because he didn't know at what time to go to some place to film something or to see something important. It's absolutely impossible. So for him it was chaos, just chaos. He was, let's say, outsider. Although he used to make film for years. So seemingly it's kind of answer to your question, that if you are a real outsider, it might be meaningless for you, at least.
Yeah, it's typical for
yeah.
African, I suppose, in most.
But it is
in
meaningless.
Africa, but the funerals can last for
Yeah.
a week, and the problem is that some of your relative dies. You will get in trouble because you have to organize and pay for the funeral, and it can be really. In some countries, government has tried to advise people that not to give so long ritual funerals to shorten them, because it's just a lot of money.
Right.
But still I have question about this meaningless. So it is meaningless for outsider.
Yeah.
Because this outsider don't understand ritual. No, but still this meaning exists inside of ritual. So these people, I hope they understand the ritual. Or
Yeah. Well, now the definition of the meaning is on the table, but maybe the meaning is not right word even. Let's say the local people, the insider, they know what's going on. That's enough for them. They know the meaning. It is Martin Luther says of the higher teaching or something. But they know what's going on, how the things, what happens next, let's say. So I've been in the same travel in Indian weddings. I made trips to India and participated on weddings in different parts of India. And I felt the same feeling, that actually I don't understand what's going place. I say most of the people who are eating and having good time, and they are not, and the people usually are not very much interested in the couple or the main participants of the event. They just come together, have good time, and if they feel that something or at one moment nothing interesting happens, they just leave the event. But the main ritual may be ahead at the very moment. So on these Indian weddings, I'm usually all the time I'm trying to ask somebody what's going on now, or where is the couple, or where the groom is coming finally, and because the most time the you know, the couple are separated in these Indian weddings, and they come together at the very end of the wedding party, as I understand, and most people are left already for this moment. The wedding, it's boring for them, you know.
Yeah.
For them, the interesting thing, the main thing of the wedding party is just to have good time together, and maybe the occasion is whatever. So but for me as an outsider, it's a problem. I don't understand. I have understanding of weddings, so that it's something different, or must be something different, will look like something. Yeah.
So, I will again advertise my tomorrow's speech. I try to explain that in some rituals, or actually not the rituals, the devices of rituals can have common aesthetic structure, or aesthetic structure to Western, is me,
Yes.
and to Africans maybe, but it has aesthetic appeal to me, high aesthetic, but it doesn't. They are the devices of rituals, not the ritual forms themselves, but it has an aesthetic quality, and it's very very delicate, very high quality.
So that's from your viewpoint.
From my viewpoint, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the creators of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
But these are for, let's say, more practical, for practical purposes, in the products of the rituals. Well, we can talk about it tomorrow.
Okay, because I asked these questions because my very small idea about our final event actually is to create some kind of meaningless ritual. So, because it is also Dadaism in this year important. So okay, I don't know this word, exact word in English, but Dadaism, one very important point was that things are egal, so things are generally meaningless.
Yeah.
So, and now to connect these two things, so it is ritual still, but still they organized events, performances, whatever. So they are poetry, they are pictures, they are films. So what is the point here actually?
When you asked the question, I was thinking that possibly you targeted to this Dadaism issue. So surely for Dadaism, it's the purpose was to be meaningless as possible, but maybe meaningless comparing to this ordinary Western world's way of rituality of the first half of 20th century, to make something different. But I think that's a meaning again.
Yes,
yeah.
It's my question: is possible ritual without meaning? So or these conceptions are so contrary.
Yeah, it is. But let's leave the ritual. Let's take Have you heard the meaningless music, for example? Do you know some music which have no meaning for you as a composer? Or is it possible or for you?
I think if we it depends how we define meaning. If you define meaning as the pragmatical meaning, so this is a phone, this is a computer, and I do this doing, and then in this way is music absolutely meaningless, because with exception of vocal music. So if we talk about instrumental music, so then absolute Western music, of course, I speak for Western music. as this Western music, what makes a clear distinction between between instrumental music and vocal music.
Yeah.
Because vocal music transports meaning over the text. If the mostly the text is not a Dada text. Yeah, and but of course, if we say that every musical phrase is an abstract meaning for itself, so it says something, but we cannot. It doesn't. It's not nothing what it says. What is from the pragmatical world of things, of human relationships, or whatever. Then I think. So if we think that every structure could transport some sort of abstract meaning. And of course, if we then these structures repeat, then we make connection, or if we find the variation of structural things, they can talk to each other.
Can I make a nasty or ugly comment?
Yes, of course, please.
If somebody is ready to pay, let's say, $20 million for Dadaistic work made in 100 years ago, does it show some, is there any meaning to this?
Yeah, the question is about the meaning of the meaning.
Yes,
But the meaning means.
Meta theories of postmodern.
Right, so I think that everything what the human being is looking at sooner or later gets meaning some ways.
What is the meaning of this square?
I don't know yet, but tomorrow I can say yes.
Because if you have also visual structure without any figure, understandable figures like this or this, roses.
Here is also problem of definition of music, because music is defined so different ways. And maybe I have a question to Steve, you, about music. Generally, you speak your traditional music from music, or you speak this in some other way. So what is, you name this actually music or not? In your culture, name you your traditional music at all.
Have you worked for music?
Because now we are talking in English and we try to understand something, and maybe you also adapt your thinking in this way. But how you itself think when you go in some voodoo ceremony and you hear some sounds, what is it for you? It is music or not?
Is music.
But you think about this as from music?
Yes.
In your own culture also inside.
We say music.
Okay. But this fetish example was good, for example, and in the Indian case, the Westerner British people brought the concept of religion to India. Before that there was no religion in India. The Hinduism was just a way of life, not a religion.
Yes.
But today it's religion, and every Indian people almost knows that we have our own religion. It's not a good example, and I think I've been in travel with the concept of nature. Loodus in Estonian culture, because until the very end of the 19th century, in the normal natural lexicon of Estonian language, there was no that kind of concept as loodus or nature, luonto, in Estonian, let's say in peasant culture. It was something what was figured out or brought from German natur or nature, this concept from very Western concept. which makes division between human world and let's say, I don't know, this wild world, and kind of. But before that, in Estonian peasantry, if you read old texts from 19th century, the word loodus you can't met. But today we are able only to think this way. There is loodus and there is a
Culture.
human world. Culture.
Culture.
It's a very Western way of thinking, and it's and I am folklorist and I deal with these old texts, and I see our people today find their loodus out from those old texts, but naturally there is there is no loodus there, you know. So another example, just how
Or you see that at the same example of music. So for most of this Middle European and or general European languages, the word music is imported from this, comes from Latin or from Greek. Yeah, and there is very rare languages. They have their own word for music. I know only Czech, but they say hudba. Yeah.
And because it is also interesting today, because I read some news that in Afghanistan now they põletavad bird musical instruments. So they will to be free from music. So, but it doesn't mean that they stop to sing and to make music. I think they think with word music something European, some Western.
Yeah.
So what kind of instruments do
I don't know. I still think that here is some unclear thing in translation, because it goes through English. And maybe they burn some CD players or whatever or something.
Yeah, but this is just an information where we cannot control if it's correct or not, or whatever is. Of course, in these Islamic cultures, there are maybe this more orthodox direction, and they absolutely refuse music from musical instruments, or they even, I think, they don't talk that as music if they recite the Quran, and for us it sounds like singing the Quran, but they just as reciting, and so also as in early Middle Ages churches there were instruments in church was a long time also in Europe banned. So of course organ was, but other instruments were a long time in Europe banned in the church.
Right. Maybe this comes from this fundamentalist Islam, just to burn and destroy everything.
Sorry, but again, they play different instruments, no problems. They play drums, they play some tar type instruments and whatever. So here is some mistake in translation.
Okay.
Here is not the real description of real situation. It's my meaning. I don't know, because I will not travel to Afghanistan to check this, but
lost in translation.
Yeah, I also think here is some translation problem.
Yeah. In the meaning.
Because meaning of music is different in Afghanistan than meaning of music in some English.
Right. But maybe it's something similar what took place in at the end of 19th century on the Vormsi Island in Estonia, when this very charismatic priest from Sweden, Ostenblom, gathered from the whole island together all the bagpipes and talharbas, and all they were burned on the island. You know, you don't know the fact. Okay, that's a good example how the kind of modern Christianity destroyed this old Swedish musical culture or whatever.
But it is a pagan. It's a pagan tradition.
Yeah, it symbolically you know, expressed this old way life on the island before this this more modern charismatic
Which century it was? 19?
at very end of 19th century. Yeah.
This strong Christian converting Christian,
Yes.
or you know, there were in several parts of the world there were charismatic
Right. Yeah.
leaders.
So yeah, it was really real cultural revolution that took place.
Like in my hometown where I came from in Halle in Saxony-Anhalt, there was a time where the pietism was very strong, and they forbid every theater other performances like that.
Yeah, Pietism made the same work in Estonia as well. So yeah.
So it is more orthodox directions of religion might restrict human activities. Not only to music, in Islamic cultures mostly is forbidden to make pictures from the world, and they make visually they make only patterns.
Yes.
So there's no pictures in a mosque.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nowhere, actually, not only in mosque.
Yeah, but thank you, Madis. It was
Yeah,
very
you're
good,
welcome.
very good. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, thank you for listening and for questions, and actually for helping myself to think.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's your topic generally. You still also in part of your general research topic.
Well, I have actually written nothing about ritual theory. It was just I just put some thoughts together for today's occasion.
Okay.
Okay, let's
Let's continue.
But from practical sense,
Yeah.
what is the right ritual?
Yeah.
Yes. At least I think one thing what we found out is that ritual must be something that repeats itself for some time. Okay, every ritual must take place once, first time, but anyway, I think can it be called ritual the first time? Not, I think. But if it takes place next time already or many times, it becomes kind of ritualistic. So
yeah, of course, there might be a big problem if we now have the intention to create something new. Just this repetition aspect we cannot involve in this way.
But maybe meaningless ritual can be only once, because when you repeat now, everybody start to construct some meanings in second time, and then this disappear, this meaninglessness.
Yeah, but it has to, the definition of the ritual has to be loose. You cannot. When I have studied the West African history or local history, many of the stories it's oral history from their side, and their religion, which is animistic religions, they don't have any Bibles or catechismus or and it what goes in Quira doesn't go in Rampopo. They have certain things together, but they are not set in that way like Muslims or we Christians, or they don't. It has to have some sort of undefined aspect. Ritual is also, it has to be, I suppose, it has to be able to be creative or add some things during the time, maybe leave some offs. And I enjoyed very much of the complicity when you talk about. I used to read these myths, Greek myths. They were popular during the postmodern time, 1980s, and they were. You found very detailed. I found them very hard to read actually because they were so complicated and so elaborate and so. And
classical myth, Greek.
Yeah,
myth.
Greek
Yes.
mythology stories.
Yeah, because they are elaborated by some specialist already. They are rewrote in some ways, and it's good example how rituals became very complicated, elaborated, not so simple,
And it's
for some reason.
yeah, and you can you have a different variation of the myths, same story basically,
Yeah.
and a lot of imagination.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of you can add this and this side story to this.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean anything. It makes it
Okay.
more attractive.
Yeah, maybe that links directly to the early opera tradition where they take this Greek myth and everybody knows the story. It was not like
popular. They were popular
yeah,
culture of the time.
yeah. Of course, the story of Orfeo and what was the first opera in history.
Also,
And it was just the people were interested how these composers how they staged it. Was it good or bad? But not for to get a new story and like nowadays in opera.
and also what I found in many of the African stories or histories is that they are bound to be legendary stories. The legend is a narrative where part of the story is a miracle.
Yeah.
Usually there's a miracle which sort of sells the story, like you told about postmodern
Yeah.
rituals. They this miracle happened.
Yeah, but this example about this early stage of opera was very good because, it's kind of, all those people audience were kind of insiders because they knew the main storyline, and then the variation became interesting, if you know the main basic structure, basic storyline, main narrative, let's say, and then the variation is something what makes the things more attractive or I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully, but and maybe this Greek myth, the same thing. That if you know the main story or the basic thing, then those side
stories.
Yes, they make the variation just make things more interesting, and that what actually takes place in oral discourse, oral tradition always. It always. The variation is always there. It's not fixed, never fixed.
Yeah.
And maybe the same about natural rituals. There must be actually variation always to keep the thing lively.
Yeah.
But not so much. Yeah, I don't know to what extent. I'm not specialist at all,
But then again,
yeah.
maybe ritual also. Maybe there's some kind of basic structure. There has to be, because it cannot be anything. It's an old question of university.
Yeah, but let's say in Estonian Lutheran Church, as much as I know, there is already for years there goes kind of struggle, or that some people have some clerics have to kind of reform the basic structure or to bring some Catholic elements into this Lutheran way of service, you know, and then there are more traditional, let's say, clerics who are against this, and maybe it's something similar. Yeah.
This is already the opposite movement. I think before it was that in the Lutheran Church, I think, as I have it from Germany, they more and more cut down the service, and the service was only very cut off from these traditional things, and then now we have the movement back. So
but what the movement back means to bring back more, how to say, magic or okay, some symbolic case.
This is what is attractive, I suppose, in Orthodox Greek, Orthodox Church or Catholic Church.
Yeah, it's
you know,
absolutely anti-Lutheran.
Yes, in a way,
Right.
But it's all like I have studied Lutheran churches, visual arts. They say that the Lutheran churches don't have any visual arts. Actually, it's a false assumption, because they have always had certain symbols, certain visual signs, and visual church culture. For example, in Finland, even in contemporary art, it flourishes. Or there is some visuality in Lutheran religion. It's not totally free of images.
But of course, during the Reformation, there was this
destruction,
picture destruction.
Iconoclasm.
Yeah, we are talking here again about this differences in this symbolic part of rituals. So, be it in Catholicism or Russian Orthodoxy or in Lutheran Church, the visual art is always there, but it's in different symbolic ways, just and.
But in Catholic, from the Middle Ages, it was not supposed that the peasants could understand Latin. So there was the pictures for the storytelling.
Yeah, but nevertheless, even the very Latin language became kind of symbolic actor of the world thing. You know, it was the Catholic language or Catholic prayers and everything. They were used symbolically in peasant culture very, very much. You know, they were used in spells and so on. All those Paternoster prayers. They were very much used in even in Estonian language. There is even verb. It's not very much used today, but like paterdama. It means the meaning is that to speak in not very understandable way. Or in very strange way, but it comes from the first words of Paternoster.
It became some sort of onomatopoetic word, I think.
Sure. But it has its kind of magical power.
Yeah.
If there is something put in strange way, in different way, or not very understandable way, so we can see how not understanding things entirely became work in different way. You know, it's there is some secret in this. You know, secrecy. It was only for Martin Luther that the power is in understanding, you know, clear understanding. But in this earlier or not earlier, but in this magical way of thinking, the understanding, kind of clean understanding, is not the main thing. the main thing is kind of magical mechanisms what works,
Yeah.
rituals, you know.
Yes.
And it's very different. I tried to, well, I didn't elaborate it so much, but yeah, the magical way of thinking is basing on absolutely different things, you know. It is this mechanism what works. This rational understanding is not the main thing, but in modern way of thinking, you must understand thing, you know, only in one way. That's a ratio.
Ratio.
But makes sense.
Yeah.
And now the postmodern thing is some new mix of everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, again the question. I think the Dadaist case is actually the very earlier example of postmodernity, but came already into picture very in very early 20th century. So
Yeah.
just the example how this discourse started to change already there.
Something unrational but still not mystical. It is,
Yeah.
because Dadaism in Dadaistic things for me are very rational. Actually, it is constructed very strictly.
Yeah.
Yes. I will explain this tomorrow, but Hegel, you already had this concept of unsinn. That it's not nonsense. You cannot say it's not nonsense, but it's unsinn, not rational. And that it in Hegel it means he has this dialectic development of the culture of the world, and in order to step from one stage to the other, you have to have this unseen concept development, and it means actually it helps to go from one stage to another. That's Hegel's
Unsinn.
unseen. Yeah, unseen.
So that things they are not coming together in a sensible way.
Yeah. You cannot say nonsense because it's not nonsense.
Of course, the translation is of course nonsense, but you cannot take nonsense as pure.
Yeah.
So that nonsense that they have no sense.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unsinn is also a sort of sin.
What is now next in our ritual? Academic ritual.
Looking through what time it is.
Yeah.
When you one more question I want to ask you, when you have prepared your talk and talked about ritual, do you see more rituals? Let's say every day when you think of this, do you see
after this lecture?
Yeah, after this or during
yeah.
when you go to the street, do you see or in your life, do you see rituals more?
Not very much, I think. Because theoretically it was quite clear already before that it's just question of classes, you know. Yeah, nothing too much new actually. Sorry.
Okay.
It's mostly about your own attention. Are you eager to see this everywhere? Yeah, but I like daily life and simple things very much, so I'm not that kind of artistic person, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not interested in
maybe
extraordinary things too much everywhere. Okay,
the question is like with this example with eating tradition, so that is a ritual. We take the knife and fork or the sticks, and if you have something what is pragmatically what we is something connected to every day, and And of course, through the repetition and through some additional values, how you do it. And if you repeat that, then it becomes a ritual. I think so. Like if you have a dog and every time you go with the dog the same way out, so it's a pragmatical need that the dog has to go out. But what you do as human, and maybe this is this individual ritual, but as the postmodern version of that.
Yeah.
So it can be even something else what is connected with everyday life or with other non-everyday life or whatever activity what humans can do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.